Hello everyone, and like Eric said, my name is Ihar Heneralau. I'm CEO and one of the co-founders of ICVR. We've been specializing in the VAD for past 4 years or so. And let me see why the presentation is not running. Question. Oh, here you go. so. Um, and thank you so much, everybody, for coming to my session today about the perfect VAD workflow. So first was more or less like a marketing trick because, in our opinion, there's no perfect workflow, and everybody has their own view to how to do their best assets and best creative. And in the way we approach the VAD and pretty much all the real-time production as a creative technology, because it's a constant state of research and constant state of incremental improvement on how to do content better, much more cool looking, and much more optimized. So to give a quick background on us, I'm one of the co-founders of ICVR, and me and my co-founders, we come all from game development. We founded the studio back in 2016 with a premise in merging interactive and narrative together. And being in Los Angeles and kind of loving the narrative aspect and loving the beautiful visuals, we naturally gravitated towards media entertainment. And back towards 2018, we started closely working with early companies in motion capture, previews, and also visual effects. And so today, our studio is a bit over 100 people, and we separated into three individual divisions, where we have IC Studio, which is focused still primarily on games, and we have full cycle production, and also we help larger AAA and AA game studios with team augmentation. We have ICVR, which is focused on immersive content and on virtual production and like VAD creation, live broadcast, TV, and feature films. And we have our IC Tools division. It's our newer division, which we started last year, which is primarily focused on tooling and pipeline and automations for virtual production and real-time animation. And you have our like small team on the hike here, just to see who like all the people behind, because it always takes a village to create content and to kind of like push technology forward. And through past years, we worked with almost majority of top studios across Hollywood. Also worked with a lot of enterprise partners, healthcare, and pretty much everywhere where real time can bring benefit to and improve the experience. And we are grateful to be partnered with a lot of organizations and companies like Epic, Perforce, ETC, and thank you again for Eric Weaver to have us here, and thank you HP for inviting us. Talk, like Eric said, we worked on multiple projects together through the ETC, and also like MESA and the SMPT and other groups where we keep collaborating and keep pushing the message forward that it takes a village to make cool content and to innovate, and we need to all be on the same page through that. So today I want to like show a quick scene from one of our like internal projects called Lightfall, and I want to set this to show the scene to set the context on how we create VAD and how the assets flow through the pipeline and what it takes basically to make it happen. So for each VAD project or each pretty much virtual production project, it's always take a massive amount of people, teams, departments, and companies to create. And generally it goes through these 3 stages where you have pre-production, production, and post-production. And throughout all of them, we constantly collaborate with each other. You start by having the script being created, then generally passed off to the previous team, where they create blockout. From the blockout, it goes to the rough set dressing, where we start in creating light schemes, we start in populating props. It goes back to previous department, and they're like always this back and forward and circulation of assets, information, data, and pretty much creative collaboration. Because through each step, we iterating and building on top of it. And like in our previous speaker, Austin was saying that they are always, even like in the last moments of when we on the principal photography, we still keep iterating on the scene. There's still changes being done on the lighting. There's still props or assets being moved around the scene. And so it's pretty much the constant circle of assets and data and information across board. And if you take one scene, one of the shots specifically, I want to demonstrate that it not only takes hundreds of people to make it, it's also it takes hundreds of various tools. Here specifically, you can see like that we to create just this shot, we use the big combination of technologies. Like we use Unreal Engine is always our base, where like we start our block out and we start creating the assets. And so majority of geometry and initial UVs, texturing, and kind of set dressing is being done in Unreal. We use also like a lot of off-the-shelf assets. We use Quixel Megascans and Quixel Mixer to populate the scene. So one of the good examples of use of Quixel Mixer is like the floor area, where like our artist uses brushes to blend in together the wood and different objects in there. But also you use photogrammetry for a lot of objects, where like you take real assets, you scan them, you process them through an array of between like 3 to 4 different softwares. From like reality capture, it goes to like ZBrush. From ZBrush, it goes to Mari. From Mari, then it goes back to Maya, and from Maya, it goes to Unreal. And then we use, for example, for the boulders which you see on the side, they were like all procedure generated in Houdini. Then textured in Substance Painter, and then the final geometry was finished in Maya for that. Wooden beams around that also was created primarily in the Maya and Substance. Then we use an array for optimization purposes, an array of decals which are done in the Photoshop and Substance Painter. And for distant objects, because Blender has a lot of good tools around that, we work on the larger scale terrain optimization and preparation for, of the terrain for use with Nanite. And then I can mention like another tools we use, for example, for the fog and wind, we build custom blueprints and custom tools within Unreal. Oftentimes we use also like Houdini, and we use some others like Maya and Arnold to render out plates for it, to like for clouds and for some like fires. Like VFX for this specific scene, it was all done in using Niagara. And the list kind of goes on and on and on. But besides the just creative technology approach, it's also becoming a pretty big endeavor from management approach. Because each of these softwares, and here like it's our current tool stack, which we use for, used by our art department, we generate different file types, we generate different source assets, different type of metadata. And because, how I was saying in the beginning, that it's a constant iterative workflow, that changes pretty much come on like daily basis. And in majority of cases, when you work, for example, on the commercial, to give you a sense of scale, it's about 4 to 6 weeks production cycle from concept to delivery on the stage into the shoot. And you need to pack there about 5 to 8, 10 people per each set to be working concurrently and keep constantly iterating and growing the content on top of it. And so from our internal side, we started looking early on the where we can automate the workflows. How can we make sure that we spend less and less time on logistics? And in the beginning, it was numbers would be like 30, from 30 to 50% of time, our artists would be spending on logistics, where we wait to upload the assets, import the assets. We would have the time lost on the things misversioned, misnamed, etc., etc. So internally, we built an array of APIs and plugins for ingest, publishing, and kind of the flow of the assets across the pipeline. We use, because we come from game development, and for us it was natural. We started using from beginning to we went into the using source control. From there, we're basically looking all the time how do we eliminate bottlenecks and what kills for us efficiency. And this type of workflow is used by a majority of larger VAD houses, VFX houses, animation houses today. One of the big problems, which like I was saying, that the collaboration of different teams and different groups across the production. And unfortunately, normally nobody should be working in vacuum, and we all communicate, and currently the communication and workflows are done through email chains and Aspera and Google Drive and whatever is possible. And if you look at the asset flow between different companies, and primarily we have 4 main areas where we have the common source control between the VAD and previes. We have the content which flows to stage and should be flowing in the non-destructive way. And from the shoot, the VFX houses always need the metadata and from the shoot and kind of the source data. Because like Austin was saying in the previous talk, you're constantly editing on the stage. You're constantly modifying, like the DPs or ACs, they always want to make iterations there. And so the VFX house needs the latest to do it. And to go through this flow, I wanted to give an example. If you wanted to do a drone shot on LED wall, so you can imagine like we have our LED wall, it's just this panel. If you want to fly a drone, we're going to have the ceiling, we're going to have the floor, we're going to have the environment around us. So to comp this as a VFX house, we need to have the information pretty much about what's the wall, how's it calibrated, what's happening there, how was the practical set built, how it was scanned, and preferably a scan of it, like exactly how to know like what assets to recreate, how to do set extension, how it was all lit, and where the actually like the edges of the environment. And that's where like the problems begin. That normally we would go through the previous phase and we would collaborate on the assets between the different vendors. Majority of the time, we actually don't. We send out maybe like Unreal project with or some assets to them. We never, majority of companies don't have integration between the perforces or kind of collaborative workflow there. And that creates like the issue from the beginning where like we start from passing off the environments, previous team with directors doing edits, because majority of times they have very talented artists inside of the company, but we don't have a way to receive the changes back or to merge the changes. So then when it goes to stage delivery, it's exactly the same issue now. We need common source control, we need synchronized shot tracking, and we need to pass off to the stage the working files. and a majority of the project files. Because, again, the stage, we constantly do edits. And one of the good examples we had in the past, for example, that we had the set with a bunch of dirt on it. The dirt arrived different colors that was ordered. And so on the last minute, our VAD team or stage ops team needed to the substance paint resource files to go edit in the texture to color match the dirt which was received to the digital dirt on the LED wall. And then when it goes to the VFX house, that's becoming even more difficult because majority of stages are not equipped right now to deliver the full package needed for comp. And some of the key parts is that we need camera metadata to be able to match where this wall is for this comp shot, what cameras were used, what the lens depths, etc., etc. We need the tracking data from the system like Moses here on the camera, which is like becoming its own kind of like own system and its own like generally exported FBX. And then we need, like I said, like environment scans, lighting, and like wall calibration, which has like about 2 different processes. And because I'm out of time, I'm gonna speed through them fairly fast. So the idea on how do we fix all of these problems, it's starting like focusing on the integration between different departments and integration between tools between different companies. Not that there are like a wide variety of reasons why we're not doing that right now, and it's mostly related to security, proprietary bespoke tools and pipelines. There are even legal agreements. It's like been a problem for a lot of collaboration between studios because the piece of ownership, it's still a problem who owns the source assets, what the deliverable is looking like, etc. But in a way, the past 3-4 years as the industry pretty much, we've been developing these workflows and been trying to help the directors and creatives to create awesome content with virtual production. And now our like next phases, I think it will be learning how to work together and how do we build unified pipelines. So, thank you, everyone.
I think we have a couple minutes for questions. So much of what he's talking about is absolutely critical in this pipeline. And if you ever get a chance, you've got a wonderful talk also at Unreal Fest that's online to look at, or SIGGRAPH you spoke at VATC. So really important critical knowledge if you really dig deeper. Eric Iverson, question.
So quick question. So I'm sure that you've experienced a lot of pain in working on some of these projects. What inspired you to start working on some of the tool sets?
Like I was saying, it's pretty much how 30 to 50% of time my artist would spend managing files. And so it's like half of my budget would go somewhere else, not on creative side. And then it's just time loss. And again, one of the fun part of this industry is that we're in the creative industry and we constantly pushing technology and want to make cooler stuff. On the other side, the budgets are very rigid and timelines are very rigid. So we're trying to look how to optimize it and how not to burn ourselves to the ground and at least take 1 weekend in a month, you know.
Do you foresee Unreal Engine eliminating a lot of these other softwares, so the post-pipeline or even pre-production pipeline is a lot shorter?
So like I was showing in the screenshot where like we use a lot of already tools inside of Unreal to model, sculpt. Even right now for animation, we do a lot of like initial processing of the mock-up data which comes in. You can go about like 60-70% with Unreal to start with like also pre-built assets in Mixer. But one of the parts which you have other DCCs have their own specialty. Houdini is incredible at doing procedural workflows and VFX. For example, like smokes, fires. You can't achieve this in Ihar. And the purpose is completely different. Unreal Engine is a real-time engine, which is like the purpose of it is to make highest FPS with the best performance possible of the like across hardware. And so definitely, inherently from engineering standpoint, you starting like taking almost like cuts on like what can be where. And so, and also it's just like, there I mentioned, I think we had like other like 12 or 15 DCCs used just for one scene. Just from Unreal Epic's team side, I think they'll need to like triple their size to grow to there to cover it. But they're making a good dent there.
Anything else?
And another thing I want to mention just on this too, it's education. It's a big piece too, because a lot of guys who worked on their like VFX world, for example, or a modeler who've been working like in 3D Max for almost 20 years, it's extremely hard to transition them. And whenever you have a team of 100 to 100 people working on a project, and majority of them being educated working, let's say like on standard workflow would be like Maya, 3D Max, Houdini, and like model for rigging, something like this. It's like titanous work to like just re-educate them and to shift them to something new. It's becoming just an internal battle.
All right, well, thank you so much. Ihar, really appreciate you being here.